Hello, hello. Welcome to the Five Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. I interview the top commercial real estate investors and industry experts so you can learn from their experiences. So if you're an investor, a high W-2 earner, or real estate or tech sales professional that wants to invest in real estate without having to manage properties or leave your day job, then this podcast is for you. Or if you're already investing in real estate, but you're doing it part-time and you want to become a full-time multifamily or full-time commercial real estate investor, this podcast is for you too. You're going to learn a ton. You will learn from real-life multifamily investors and other professionals in the industry. They're going to share their blueprints for success, and I'm super excited that you're here. So I hope you enjoy the show. All right. Hello, hello. This is Abel Pacheco, your host for the Five Talents Podcast. We talk about commercial real estate, wealth creation, mindset, all kinds of good stuff. And I know you are going to enjoy a great conversation today with Mr. Willie James Mandrell. Willie, how's it going, brother?
It's going well, going well. I appreciate you having me and giving me the opportunity to come on.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm excited to have the conversation. And for those listeners that are with us today, because a lot of times we do talk about some, large multifamily commercial properties via syndication and, hundreds of millions of dollars. And people, I know there's probably a certain a number of people that go, it's too big. I can't think that big. And I know that because, this guy, this guy was one of them for years and years and years. And hearing a story like yours is it's another avenue, a way to get into a lot of commercial, a lot of real estate, one way or the other, multifamily, residential, commercial, and a lot of units. And so anyways, I'm excited. So for those that don't know Willie, you need to go to all of his social platforms, which we'll talk about later, to go follow him and, get into his world, learn a little bit more about him. He's in Boston. They have a very defined niche in the Boston multifamily space. They focus on value adds, so just like we do, and they do the BRRRR strategy. So if you're not familiar with that, BRRR, buy, rehab, rent it, refinance it, get it out there and repeat. And so they do 2 to 4 multifamily houses over there, and they kind of focus on not a single residential, but multi. And they focus on scaling that business up, and they're in about 75 doors today. I don't know how many millions of dollars that is in Boston. I'm sure it's a little different than Texas.
Yeah, it's definitely a little different. I mean, that's, it's funny. I mean, we often talk about units on, and everything, and people, how many units you have. And I've got 5,000 and 400 or 200 or whatever it may be. And I tell people all the time, I mean, Boston, Back Bay is one of our more popular neighborhoods, here in Boston. If you've ever been to Boston, Back Bay is Newbury Street. It's Copley. It's the upper echelon of those neighborhoods. And me personally, would I rather have, 100 units somewhere somewhere else, or would I rather have 2 units on Newbury Street in Back Bay? I mean, I'd rather have the 2 units. So unit count is not always the most important thing. Sometimes it's really about, at the end of the day, I'm a cash flow investor. And, for me, it's how much money am I putting in my pocket every month at the end of the day, whether it's 1,000 units or 100 units or whatever it may be. If I'm putting a decent amount of cash flow in my pocket every month, I'm going to be happy. So
yeah, get it on. So how long have you been doing real estate investing, one way or the other? How long?
One way or the other, 15 years. 2006.
Wow.
Bought my first 2 in 2006, maybe 10 minutes outside the city in Quincy, Mass, and fell in love with the business. Been into it ever since. I was in corporate America for a little while. I was in the securities industry, so I learned a lot about investing in stock market and annuities and life insurance and all types of other things as well. But real estate was always the tangible asset that kept pulling me back. I like the idea that I can control it. I like the idea that it's not influenced by outside factors. It is, but I mean, it's not so much. The one thing that I love about real estate and is the fact that we're always going to need a place to live. There's no tech solution, in my opinion, coming down the pipeline for real estate. You need it. People are always going to need a place to live. And our population is growing. Supply and demand tells us that as the population grows, the earth isn't getting any bigger. Boston isn't getting any bigger itself. So the land that you own, as the population increased, we all need a place to live. So that means the demand for housing is going up. And the people who own land are going to see a lot of appreciation in that land.
Yeah, yeah. There's only so much of that around.
Right. Absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome, man. So, tell us how you first got into real estate. So you said investing, securities, some insurance, some other things. So that was your professional career leading up to real estate. How long did you do that? Like right out of college, or
I
kind of
did.
started doing that?
I did. I mean, I'm 38 right now. So I mean, I bought my first 15 years ago. I was 23. I bought my first two family right out of college, 23. My grandmother actually was in the business. She continued to push me into getting into it. But while I was also listening to her, I was being in the. I went to school for finance myself. I went to school for here at
Okay.
Northeastern in Boston for finance. And when I got out, I was in the financial services industry. So I'm constantly doing calculations and I'm trying to figure out, literally at 23 years old, 24 years old, 25, when can I retire? When I already knew, a few years into this thing, I was like, this whole 9 to 5 thing is not for me. When can I retire? How can I put the time in and when I can retire? So I used to do calculations. I used to sit at my desk while everybody else was kind of BSing and on Facebook or whatever they were doing back in 2007, 8, 9.
Yeah.
I was doing mathematical calculations and sitting there and saying, okay, well, how long would it take me to get to $1 million? And if I had $1 million, how long would that $1 million last me into my retirement? And I kept coming up with dead ends. I would do, okay, well, let me get to $2 million. And well, if I got to $2 million, it would only last me another 20 years. And that means I would probably outlive my money, even if I only lived to 78, 80 or something like that. So real estate, when I turned around and looked at it, and I was like, the traditional way of doing things in the market just doesn't work. Most people work a 9 to 5 job, or 6 to 3, or whatever it is, or 7 to 3 if you're in the medical industry or restaurant, and they save up, they save, and then they wait to a point where they call retirement, and then they spend that money down. Real estate and cash flow teaches you, reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, Millionaire Real Estate Investor, you don't have to have that type of plan. You can just produce a certain amount of cash flow that'll pay you well into your retirement, and then you never have to really. You can retire early and continue to produce cash flow into your retirement. And when I discovered that model, when that hit me, when the light bulb went off, I was sold. I was in real estate full time after that. I mean, I spent a couple more years in corporate, but I was mentally already gone. I checked out, did what I had to do, got my real estate license, started selling real estate. And the only reason I wanted to sell real estate is so I can immerse myself in the business, so I can be surrounded by it, so I can really establish and know my niche. And then, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, I just hopped in full time and just said, this is my everyday, all day. And then slowly cut out some of the other, aspects of my business, and I'm full time investing now.
I'm excited for you. What what an amazing just path, just as you kind of laid it out really quickly. I heard a few things. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is a book many of us have read. I got to interview Sharon Lechter on our podcast, and she's the co-author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So she came on, and so you're following some great people on the podcast. And anyways, a lot of people mentioned that book. I read it too. It was around 2000 and maybe 6 or 8 or something that I finally picked it up. And the same. I like I heard real estate license. So just getting in the world. So even though you weren't investing maybe yourself with your own money yet, it was like, I'm just going to get around other people that are. So you learned a ton, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
And then you surrounded yourself. And then 5 to 6 years ago, hey, I'm going to go full-time, full bore. So you were essentially working in the world and in investing some of your money or your at the same time, right? Part-time.
Absolutely. So
part-time.
I was literally working, and what I didn't spend on, on the, the rest of my mortgage payment, food, taxes, insurance, I was saving it up and putting it into real estate in some way, shape or form. One of the greatest things, and I think I'm skipping way ahead here, but one of the next greatest things that I've ever discovered, and this may be something that's obvious to some people and it may be mind blowing to other people, was the self-directed IRA. The fact that you can invest in real estate with your retirement money means that when I was younger, and I didn't really have much. I wasn't married, didn't have any children, just had my 1, 2 family and a couple of things. I was basically stacking money away into a self-directed IRA. And now, like I said, I own, 6 units in my retirement plan, and we've bought with all pre-tax money. My wife owns a couple of units within her self-directed IRA. So just stuff like that has always been kind of an obsession of mine, just kind of figuring out creative ways to finance more real estate, to buy more assets, and get in.
Yeah. Well, someone like you that has an affinity for numbers, like you said, you are already younger, doing your calculations on how quickly I can retire, how much money it's going to take me to need to do that. You turn that kind of calculation towards, oh, well, let me see what I can make or my return. I love the self-directed IRA piece. Me and my wife did the same thing. We took our 401k after I exited from a tech company. We went and I pushed that to a self-directed IRA. And then my wife, when we had our little one, she's now 3.5. That was her time to exit from the corporate world. And we took her 401k, moved it to an IRA.
Absolutely.
And they're invested indoors also. So yeah, that's awesome, man. So that's kind of how you kind of got, rolling initially. And you can't, go ahead.
Yeah, a little bit. And again, the other thing I was going to say is I had the benefit of it's a gift and a curse, right? I mean, you were obviously, remember 2006, I bought my first house. 2007, the stock market crashed. 2008, the housing market crashed. And it's a gift and a curse, because one of the things that I saw that really pushed me and made me understand and figure out this retirement thing, and not, was in 2008, 2009, 2010, you saw people that were, on the verge of retirement, right? They were planning on retiring in 2010, going back into the workforce. Their retirement plans have been slashed by 40% almost overnight, right? And anybody who had saved up that $1 million that I thought was the top of the world was now looking at 600,000 and questioning whether they can retire. And I was walking into places like a Walmart or a supermarket, and you're seeing all of these retirees now bagging groceries or greeting people or just going back to work just so they can kind of, get health insurance or earn it. And I mean, that really, I say it's a gift and a curse, because it really woke me up to say, I can't let, a stock market crash dictate my retirement. Another reason I've been, pulled into real estate so heavily. Do I diversify? Do I invested into the stock market? Absolutely. But not so heavily that one Enron, one mistake from Mark Zuckerberg, one mistake from the travel industry or an airline can obviously
bad tweet from Elon Musk.
A bad tweet from Elon Musk can affect my entire retirement. I think that's silly. So that's one of the things that I always preach with is real estate is controllable, it's tangible. Land, Mark Twain said it, buy land, they're not making it anymore. I just believe in it wholeheartedly.
I didn't know that was a Mark Twain quote. I didn't know that. I know I've heard it. We say it and I heard it, but I didn't know he quoted. That's awesome. Well, this has been a tremendous, opportunity just to get into your world a little bit and, get it behind or in your mind is what I'm trying to say. So thank you very much. So talk to us about what you're doing today. So you have a total of 75 doors. A lot of these properties in Boston. How does that even happen? Maybe a super quick run through. You went from like your first one to 5 to 10 to how does that happen?
Yeah, the initial I describe it as kind of like taking off from a runway, like an airplane takes off, right? There's a lot of thrust, a lot of power, a lot of energy, a lot of fuel that's used on the runway to get your wheels up off the ground. And then before you know it, anybody who's ever, rode a plane or flown in a plane knows that you don't really know, or you can't even feel 10,000 to 30,000 feet, right? You don't really experience. You can feel the jolt backwards when you're kind of taking off and going on the runway. So that's kind of like what success is like, or wealth building is like, right? I mean, it's once you get to, we went from, I owned that first 2 family. And then I creatively was able to buy another 3. So I ended up with 5 units. My wife at the time, or my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, we knew we had been together for 5 years. I took the game. I said, you know what, this is going to work out. So, we collectively win on another one. She bought a 3 family. So now we're looking at 8 units collectively. And then we said, okay, now the banks are kind of onto us, right? The traditional residential lenders are
Yeah, we're
onto
getting
us.
close to 10 doors. And
Exactly
so
right.
that's
Now
the
you have,
limit.
we have 8 doors, so we basically said, we're going to go buy the single family now. We have 8 units. We're just go buy the single family. We'll also be able to do that with a very low down payment. So we have our single family plus 8 doors. Now you have to start getting a little bit more creative. Now we're starting to use retirement funds and old 401ks. She moved. Even you said that your wife had left or you exited the business. Even if you moved from a old job to a new job, don't transfer the old 401k over to the new
That's what I did. Yeah.
platform. You just move it to a self-directed IRA, which we
Yeah.
did. She bought it. We bought another 3 there. Now we start to have to get a little bit more creative. We start doing the burst strategy. We start bringing on a little bit of partners here and there. And then we really start to brand ourselves at that point, right? Now you're not just kind of small, you're kind of stuck in that 15 unit space. It's enough to drive you crazy, but it's not enough to start hiring staff. So
Yeah.
it's a really tough space.
I like the way you said that. It's enough to drive you crazy, but
crazy,
not
but
enough to
yeah,
drive
exactly.
staff.
It's not really you actually that's actually almost kind of a dangerous place to be. You really want to scale. That's what I find when you're at that 10 to 15 to 20 unit. It's kind of like you're still trying to do everything yourself. I'm still taking maintenance calls. I'm still doing all this stuff. I need to scale up so I can hire an assistant. I need to scale up so we can put a property manager in place, so we can buy a van. So we start taking on, some partners and some financial partners, and I start going out into the market, really starting to really put our message out there. Here's what we're looking for. We're looking for dilapidated three families that need a lot of work, and just start branding ourselves as those experts within the particular market, within our niche. There are about 20 different neighborhoods here in Boston. We only invest really in 3 or 4. And we only really invest in 3 families and 4 family properties. Typical deal for us, just to kind of give you a quick overview. 3 family, buying it at about 650,000. Let's call it 600,000 just to make the numbers easy. 600,000, putting about $200,000 into it. That's a gut reno, taking everything down to the studs, new electrical, new plumbing, new roof, new windows. And the building is probably worth about $1 million when it's all said and done. So
Nice.
2 into it, we've created about $200,000 in equity, and it's worth about $1 million when it's all said and done. And that's what the burst strategy is finding properties that are 60 cents on the dollar, 70 cents on the dollar, putting some money into them, having some equity, and now you can go back to the bank, pull your cash right back out because there's enough equity there, and we just repeat the process over and over again. And then we really started stepping it up when we learned how to use private funding, private equity, private debt, and now we don't necessarily have to have just our money tied up in there. We can do, right now I have about 4 different construction projects going on at various places, and they're all being funded by private debt.
Yeah, what an amazing run. Thank you very, very much for like a concise run through so people can kind of get it, right? And I think that that leap from doing it yourself to the private lender side of it, it's a big mental hurdle like to cross. Well, now it's not my money that I'm risking, but I'm risking someone else's money. And then also, how do I convince somebody to let me know that to lend me their money to go do that? And then you're the model is straightforward: the buy, rehab, refinance, rent out, and kind of pull your equity out. So those numbers make sense. So we're in Texas. Our house is on the same level, maybe like $300,000 average house price. In San Antonio, Texas, it's probably like 290, and in Austin, it's probably higher. It's like 4 and change. Dallas is 4 and change. Houston is probably high threes. But in general, the houses are a little different price, but the same mechanics work. You mentioned 60 to 70% of ARV. For those that don't know, that's after repair value. So how do you find that? Well, typically when you get some kind of loan, like let's say it's a hard money loan or something on these properties, they'll send an appraiser that's skilled in not only looking at the as is value, but they'll take your plan, your construction budget, the materials that you're using, and they'll say, hey, I project this is going to be worth 1.2 million. So maybe a hard money lender might say, hey, here's 90% or 100% of the purchase price plus 90 or 100% of your rehab costs. So you still, it's not 100%. You have to have some kind of seed in your hand,
Yeah.
but you can go do that. You can put down a little seed, and then the other people's money that we're leveraging at that point, it's
Absolutely.
the bank, it's the lender, it's the hard money lender. And then the chasm to cross is, well, you may have, I don't know how much cash in like one of those deals, the hard money lenders or lenders are giving you a good chunk of change. Hello. You're listening to the 5 Talents Podcast. I'm your host, Abel Pacheco. If you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you're serious about achieving financial freedom. Are you ready to create your own path through multifamily investing for yourself and your family? Then I know you're going to appreciate our Investor's Guide to Multifamily Investing. It's titled Tackling Commercial Real Estate the Easy Way. We use this guide to invest ourselves in $93 million worth of real estate. So we're going to show you the basic mechanics of multifamily syndications and how to evaluate your next passive investment opportunity. So the best part, if you subscribe to our podcast now, leave us a review and a rating. I'm going to give you a free copy of our ebook. So please take a moment to do that now. Once you've done that, go to 5tcre.com/ebook, 5tcre.com/ebook. Make sure to let us know you left a review, and we're going to send you a free copy. So thank you so much for subscribing to the 5 Talents Podcast. We really appreciate it. How much did you actually need either for down payments or to fund the construction in advance before the draw process? How much for like one deal on your own?
Typically we're probably raising about $250,000, so $250,000 to get into one deal. And that the reason that is because, let's say if I keep that same example, 2 into it, and it's worth $1 million. The down payment on 6 is at the very least $120,000, because you're talking about at least 20% down, right? Sometimes we can find that's what we're shooting for. Sometimes you have to have a 25% down lender. Now you're at $150,000, but $120,000. The other reason that you need the other $80,000 is because what most people forget is you still have holding costs. You still have, while I'm doing the project over the 6 months, and we have a lot of red tape that we need to get through here in Boston, right?
It's like insurance high level, taxes, insurance, electricity, then all your permits and your zoning and approvals and
all that stuff, the architectural designs, the engineer that pops in, and then then you need a budget to actually start construction, because what most people, especially if you're a new investor, you don't understand is even the hard money lender doesn't basically say they're going to give you, let's call it 80% of the purchase price. Or lend you 80% of the purchase price, and then 100% of construction. The problem that you have is when you close on the deal, they're not going to say, okay, Willie, you need 200 for construction. Here's a check for 200,000.
They don't do that.
Right. They don't do that. No, they don't do that. They basically say, when you get the demo done, we'll reimburse you for the demo. Well, when you get the electrical done, we'll reimburse you for the electrical. So what you need, the problem that you have is you need liquidity on the front end, in addition to the down payment and holding costs and mortgage payments and everything else, to actually start construction. And that's why, what we're doing is not only raising the purchase price, but also the additional startup capital that's needed as well. One thing I'll circle back around on that you said, and I think a lot of people should keep in mind is, and this is the way I approached it. Initially, I was approaching it like you and saying, how do I get somebody to lend me $250,000? But then I switched my mindset in understanding that we pay, and I'm not really sure what you pay on your private money, but we pay 12%. And the reason we do it is because it's very simple for our investors to understand, and it's very simple for us to understand. You borrow $100,000, I borrow $100,000 from you at 12%. Every month I owe you $1,000. At the end of that, that's very just simple. It's very simple. So if I hold that note, if I have $100,000 for 6 months, it costs me $6,000, and it's very, very simple. I just keep it. I like it that way. We can probably recruit money less, and it sounds silly. We can probably get it for 8 or 10%, but we sometimes don't.
Harder to do that math.
Just because exactly, it's harder to do the math. Just so we can keep our calculations really simple. But the point I'm trying to make is, so if I'm paying 12%, if I'm borrowing money from you, Abel, 12%, I'm presenting it to you as an opportunity for you. I'm saying, Abel, think about where else you can get 12% on your money. Where are you going to put $100,000 where you can get a secured 12% on that money? You're not going to put it in the stock market and risk it, like that. I mean, you're not going to put it into, you're not going to get it from bonds or mutual funds. I mean, where else are you going to put that?
Not
right now. Exactly. Where else are you going to put that money? So I present it to our investors as more of an opportunity for them. And when you present it that way, it's less, hey, I'm looking to borrow money from you and I'm looking to take on debt from you, as I'm also looking to present an opportunity for you to earn some capital on money that you just have sitting in account, in a money market account that's earning you less than 1% right now, and a 401k that's, whatever it may be, or self-directed IRA. And then it's just educating people about how to access that capital, right? If you have a piece of property that's sitting around and you have a substantial amount of equity within that property, you can go right now to go get a home equity line for 4%, for 3%, depending on what your credit score and a bank institution. Let's say it's 4%. Mm-hmm. If you can pull out $100,000 line of credit at 4% and then lend it to me at 12%, you're making an 8% difference on your money, right? So even if you didn't have that money just sitting around, you can actually go borrow that capital and make money on the existing, equity that's in your home. Once I give that money back to you, you pay the line of credit and you basically have an 8% difference, or made, let's call it, $8,000 for the year based on borrowed capital. So it's just about kind of educating people about the numbers as well. And then switching your mindset into, I'm not borrowing this money, but I'm providing an opportunity to this specific lender.
Yeah, what a great conversation. So let's pause for a second here before we talk about more doors, because a good number of our investors, a good number of our listeners are people that want to get educated on passive investing opportunities. So Willie is bringing a different type of passive investing opportunity than ours are in the syndication model. And you put it in, it's literally clear it's passive because the general partners and the principals, essentially our team, is doing a lot of the work. And then we provide that passive investing opportunity. But Willie has a different way to diversify your passive investments, because some of you are professionals, business owners, high net worth, high W-2 earners that are listening right now. And you go, I'm never going to do what Willie's doing. Abel Pacheco tried doing it for years too. And I go, man, I was in the corporate world. I was an IT sales executive, professional, director, regional sales director, whatever, all the titles. And I was making a good lick at the W-2 commission only. And what I did was I invested in single family houses from 2000, and I bought my first one in 2008, and I didn't convert to multifamily until 2018. So I was doing this as a side hustle, right? And I realized, man, my time was worth way more in the W-2 world than what I was at my scale doing it on the real estate side. I'm happy I did it for experience now, but if you never want to mess with properties, taxes, termites, toilets, rehab, all that stuff, you don't have to be a part of this real estate investment. There are people like Willie, people like Abel. We are just literally doing the finding, the funding, the financing, the rehabbing, the turning, force appreciation, and then determining the exit strategy. And then your money works exactly the same way. You get a piece of the deal. And for this model, it's a 12% return, which is exactly like you said. Where else are we going to find 12% that's backed by something tangible, something that I can see, something that I can literally say, I'm going to force the value up, because it's literally forcing the value up, right?
No, and that you're exactly right. And it's not like I'm going and buying a market piece of property that's market ready or rent ready, right? And just kind of holding on to it and just kind of sitting around. We're buying properties at 60 cents on the dollar, 60 cents compared to ARV. So there's not, I wouldn't say there's no risk, but I mean the risk is very low, because you're jumping into an opportunity where the professional that's running, the GP or the general partner, has a track record. You can see what they've produced, other properties that they've done. Most of the stuff that we're doing is cookie cutter anyway. All of these 3 families in Boston were built in 1910, 1920. They're all built at the same exact time. We're not, not too many surprises when you open things up. And then you're going in and you're just creating value. And there's a lot of room. And people always say, well, what happens if you go over budget, or what happens if something goes wrong? Well, again, we're buying the property at 60 cents on the dollar. So you go back to that same model, right? Let's say if I bought the property at 600,000 and the 200,000 that I thought I was going to spend actually turned into 300,000, right? That's I'm over by 50%.
That's a pretty big miss.
That's a pretty big miss, right?
Yeah,
right.
But let's
exactly. Right? So it's 300,000. So I'm into it for 900, but it's still worth $1 million. In that particular instance, I liquidate the property, I sell the property. and move on. And I still am able to pay my investors back with no problem. Have I lost 6 months of work in my life? Yes, but that's the risk that I take moving forward. Or option two, as I go find a private equity partner, and that equity partner comes in, and now I don't own 100% of the building. It's a property that I'd still like to keep. That equity partner probably comes in with the extra $100,000 and now owns a portion of that property. So there are multiple exit strategies that we have designated, just so if we do get ourselves in trouble for some reason, that we are never not returning someone's capital in full. Because I would say, as a side note, there is, though Texas is a much bigger place than Dallas, I imagine that it's still very small when it comes to the real estate professionals who are actually doing substantial amount of business.
In the community is very small. And when you get into our space, the multifamily, it's like really small. Even all the different markets, it's a handful of us, and we kind of feels like we all know each other, or somebody knows of you from someone else. It's super small.
Exactly. We connected and we go, like, hey, check me out on Facebook. And I'm like, wait a minute, we already know 5 of the same people.
Yeah.
It's like, you live in Texas, you invest in Texas, I'm in Boston, but yet we know 5 of the same people, because the real estate business itself is very small. People who are actually doing substantial, making substantial moves. And when I say that, the reason I'm saying that is because my reputation is everything to me, right? I do everything I can to make sure that if you are ever participating in a project with me, and I'm pretty sure you feel the same way, you're made whole, because I never want there to be Willie Mandrell didn't perform, or Willie Mandrell said that he was going to do something that he didn't quite do. Sometimes there are pandemics,
there you go.
that hit us.
Sometimes there are pandemics.
Sometimes there are pandemics, right? And you can't perform exactly as anticipated. But I still do everything I can to make sure that my reputation is protected, because I do understand that it is a very small industry. Even throughout the country, but specifically, here in Boston as well.
Yeah, I was talking about this with one of my buddies, and he's in a few thousand doors and hundreds of millions of dollars. He raises capital like at the $7-8 million mark for every deal. I mean, it's just nuts, right?
Yeah.
But we were talking about this part. It's if God forbid he misses now, kind of like what you're saying. In our spot, we're promising investors, X amount, 15-16% returns or whatever. And if we were to miss, it's like, oh, we missed and we hit 10 or 12%, oh man, we missed.
Right.
It's a big difference than I lost all my money in the stock market, or I just lost it all. You're like, well, no, we're talking about preservation of capital is number one. Right. And now how do I, like you mentioned earlier, get diversified? Because some people may say, oh, the Texas market. Yeah. Well, the Texas market insurance taxes are still continuing to increase. And then, oh, there's another market where I may not say, well, I've never thought about investing in Boston. I am now after our conversation, because I know an expert over there that's doing it. You've done it time and time again. And I know is it a risk? Yes. Is it a different risk than one of these other vehicles? Absolutely. Right. The property's here. It's tangible. I have a business plan with the team and a crew that has proven time and time again, with a great track record. So anyways, Absolutely. It's a good conversation for the investors. Hopefully you guys took a couple of notes on this area. So what's your business look like today, man? It's 75 doors. You've obviously crossed that chasm between trying to figure out how to do it on your own and your employees. Do you have like acquisition people? Do you have construction? Are you vertically integrated? Do you outsource? Tell us all this good stuff.
That's what all this morning, that's what all it was. It was a phone call, a 30-minute phone call with the property manager who's late. Let me back up. So initially, when you're kind of coming into this thing, I talked about kind of scaling up, and the hardest thing for people to do, and I find that is for people to delegate and trust other people. But if you're going to scale, you absolutely have to do it, right? I mean, that's one of the hardest things to do. Is you want to do everything yourself. Only I can collect rents like somebody else. Only I can fix this toilet like somebody else can. Other people can do amazing things, and often they'll do it better than you can as well. So in the last 4 or 5 years, I hired a couple of property management companies. I didn't like the way they perform. I feel like property management is something that is going to make or break you down the line, right? You have to manage your properties well. You want to put, maintenance procedures in place. You want to have preventive maintenance plans and schedules. And I just didn't feel like the property managers that were doing it well. I obviously didn't want to do it myself. So I came to a happy medium, and I basically started my own property management company. So I have a full-time carpenter, a property manager, and several other individuals, laborers, and stuff like that that work for us. We bought company vehicles, over time, and we opened up our own property management company. So my day to day now starts with having a conversation with the property manager. Who's behind on rent? What rental increases do we need to do? What maintenance requests have been fulfilled? Who needs to be paid? X, Y, Z. Second conversation of this morning on a Friday happens with the project manager. So of those 75, some of those are still under construction, right? At 75 doors, we know what we've been approved for. We know what's under construction, but I would say there are about 15 of them right now that are still in some various places, found from foundation to we're finishing off finished carpentry right now. So having a conversation with her about where we are with each project. Again, who needs to be paid, what troubles we're having right now, what red tape that we're going through. And then for me, from there, it's just, I don't have a full-time. I think the next phase would be getting somebody full-time on the books, an accountant in-house to just kind of help me, because that's where I spend most of my day. I would say 85% of my job now is sitting behind a desk. You see the papers behind me right now.
And he's coming from a finance background.
Exactly.
That's your version of
that's my exactly.
I don't want to let go of this part, right?
That's exactly it. I mean, at the end of the day, I understand my reputation is everything, so I want to make sure people are paid. They're paid on time. They're paid the right amount. If we have disputes, I want the disputes to go through me. I want to make sure all our contracts are right in place. So all that stuff kind of funnels through the back office. But I do eventually would like to get out a little bit more, see some more of our projects, get my hands a little bit dirty, spend a little bit more time on the acquisition side as well. And then, so would like to hire a bookkeeper, an accountant at some point. And then we also have an acquisitions manager as well, somebody who's constantly just putting out marketing out there, the head of the snake, constantly feeding our deal funnel with new opportunities. And then she helps me out a lot on the finance side in terms of sending documentation over to the bank, putting on my personal financial statement together, updating my personal financial statement, putting our LLCs, tax IDs, and everything else together, and getting that documentation over to who's needed. And then just various other subcontractors that we have a long list and a good relationship with. Plumbers, you have to have a good relationship with plumbers, especially in the Northeast. Heating is a big thing here. Yeah. I'm not sure how it is in Texas, but
it's the AC guy.
It's the AC, right? It's the AC. Yeah, it's exactly. So,
anyways, go
ahead. For us, electrician, cleaners, just various other subcontractors that we need to, stay in contact with on a regular basis. And then just real estate agents that, that are constantly going out there and helping us. And here in Boston, I stopped leasing up my own stuff a long time ago. I hated getting calls and people, hey, Willie, come on, I really need this apartment and blah, blah. So I stopped leasing it was one of the first things I delegated, stop leasing my stuff up the same. I'll pay a real estate agent, a local real estate agent from an office, we pay a full month's fee to go out, market the property, vet the tenant, collect the paperwork, and send it over to me. I say yay, nay, thumbs up, thumbs down. Thumbs up, they move the person in, do a move-in checklist and all the other procedures, and then hand it over to the property manager. So we have a solid team. Team's still growing. We have growing pains just like any other business. Still trying to figure things out, but I do believe that if you really want to, the 1 3-family or 2-family or whatever it is, or 2 is fine. 2 buildings is fine. You can probably manage everything yourself, do everything yourself. Don't get yourself stuck in that limbo phase, that 10, 15, 20 units. It is very difficult to just stay there. That is where I buy most of my property from. And I'll tell you exactly why I know this.
Tired owners, huh?
Exactly. Those are the people that I buy most of my deals from, because I'm way too old to keep running around this heavy, but I'm too old and stuck in my ways to ever delegate and trust anybody else to do this as well as I can do it. Mm-hmm. So when I reached that phase, I said, I need to get out of this pocket as quickly as possible. Because recognizing, when I look back over the years and say, where did I acquire most of the property from? That's what it was. It was a 60-year-old gentleman who understood the power of real estate, but didn't understand how to take it from just a small portfolio and actually make a business out of it.
What a great nugget or insight here, because this is the premise of that Rich Dad Poor Dad, building a system
Right.
in a process and a business system, as opposed to being a small business owner.
Right.
And the small business owner, if you stop working, the business stops running. And if you build a system, you may be able to build it good enough to where, like Willie is on a meeting and everybody else is doing the work. Even at some point, he can replace himself in the middle of the system and somebody else can push it. I don't think he's going to do that right now. I think he's in the helm and he loves it. But
I'm still a little bit of a control freak, so I'm not going to do that just yet. But let me tell you
yet,
one other.
But you have the ability to.
You have the ability to.
Pretty cool.
And that's absolutely the goal. You're talking about Robert Kiyosaki's next book, right? I can't remember the name of it, but it basically breaks down, employee versus self-employed versus business owner, and kind of the cash flow quadrant.
The quadrant.
Cash flow quadrants. That's exactly what it is. And you're absolutely right. The E-Myth is another great book that breaks down kind of how to build systems. And I tell everybody this.
I've never read that one. That one's a pretty good one.
Yeah, the E-Myth. It's all about.
Heard it. I didn't realize what it was until you said it right now.
Putting procedures in place, putting business processes in place, and making yourself out to be McDonald's, so to speak. And I tell everybody the same kind of corny story, but this is what I realized is that, when I was 16 years old, I was in high school, I had a job at McDonald's, and I came in and I was within 2 weeks, I was working the fryer later, flipping the burgers, working the drive-through, working the register. And I thought to myself, I was like, I'm the man. I should be running this place. I'm running this place. I'm the man. The fact that I was able to pick this all up this quickly, 20 something years later, I realized that I wasn't the man at all. McDonald's just has the best procedures and training manual and everything else in the world. So any idiot like myself can come in.
Repeatable process. Man.
Exactly. And that's all it is. And that's really what you want to do. And that's what I strive to do in my business, is create procedures and processes. When I do something well, I try to document the heck out of it, put a procedure in place. I used to do written, but now even if I can, what I do is I put video trainings in place. I'll record myself, make a YouTube video out of it, and have that YouTube video on the back of my channel. So I have my public channel, but then there's also a training segment for all employees and subcontractors, anybody else that comes on, so they can quickly watch a video at 1 o'clock in the morning while I'm sleeping, or 10 o'clock and at night, whenever it may be. I need to know how to do, put a new lease agreement together. I need to know how to do this, or whatever it may be in your business. Put those procedures together, treat it like McDonald's. So anyone that comes in, if my property manager leaves, we can quickly, not to say quickly because she's super valuable, but quickly get somebody else up to speed through those particular procedures.
All right. This has been an awesome conversation. Thank you very much, Willie. I appreciate the opportunity to spend a little time with you. So where can someone reach out to you that wants to get into your world? And then who do you actually want to reach out to you?
Oh, whoever. I mean, like I said, I love real estate. I really do. I mean, I can talk about this all day long. We can extend this conversation 3 hours if we really wanted to. So anybody who's looking to learn, anybody who's brand new to the business, I would definitely check out my YouTube channel, /W Mandrell. I dump a ton of content on there. I'm going to continue to dump a ton of content on there in terms of, hard money, private money, how to use commercial financing, where do you start, FHA loans, scaling your business up, hiring people, firing people, virtual assistants, all that good stuff is on there. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Connect with me. You can Google Willie Mandrell or Mandrell Co. And if you want a 30-minute consultation, we do a free 30-minute hop on the phone with you, talk about your business, where you're trying to go. Do you own one unit? Do you own no units? Are you trying to own whatever I can help you with? We'll sit down, we'll chat for 30 minutes and just see how we can, help your business grow. You can find that link at it's just mandrellco.com/coaching. So I'm on, like I said, the social platforms, look me up. But I would say YouTube is probably the best place to connect with me.
All right. Very good. And we'll put those in the show notes. So if y'all need to get a hold of them, that should be there. And then at this point, we're wrapping up towards the end. Is there anything we haven't talked about today that you were hoping I touched on, that we just didn't get to? Anything you want to share? Last parting words, just really anything in general. It's your time.
No, I mean, good conversation. I don't think there's anything that we touched upon. If I can basically, if let's say we didn't have the conversation, you said, "Hey, Willie, just say one thing that that makes sense or hopefully makes sense to people." At the end of the day, it's all about economics for me, right? And again, I mentioned it. I mentioned it lightly. I'll mention it again. The population of the earth is growing all the time. The earth isn't getting any bigger. At the same time, you have a growing population of people here. I think there's 1 billion people that have added since I was in grade school to now. There's 1 billion more people on the planet. The earth isn't getting any bigger. Boston isn't getting any bigger. Dallas isn't getting any bigger. Austin isn't getting any bigger. So what happens? It's supply and demand. As the population continues to grow, people continue to move to Dallas. People continue to move to Boston. Though if there's no more space in Boston, the landowners get rich. Buy land, hold on to it. You're going to be successful.
What a great parting word right there, brother. So thank you very much, Willie. I really appreciate your time. It's been an excellent conversation. I know people got some value from this show. And so if you did, I encourage you, go to our podcast right now, subscribe, rate, and leave us a written review. The written reviews are absolutely helpful. And go reach out to Willie, go connect with his areas and ping him, let him know that you heard him here on our podcast. It would bless my heart. And appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And I'll see you on the next show. Willie, thank you very much.
I appreciate you having me on.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of the 5 Talents Podcast with your host, myself, Abel Pacheco. Each week, we're going to bring you interviews from industry experts and commercial real estate investors who followed their dreams and achieved massive success. Before you leave, let me ask you a few questions. Did you enjoy this episode? Did you learn something valuable? Was your mind stretched to what's possible and what you can achieve? Do you want other experts just like the one you heard today? If you answered yes to any or all of those questions, then please take a moment to subscribe to the 5 Talents Podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and most importantly, leave us a written review. Tell us what you liked, tell us your favorite guest, give us any feedback. I'm excited to learn and improve so you can get a more valuable show. So thank you again for subscribing to the 5 Talents Podcast.